So how is everyone? It's lovely to see all of you. Thank you for coming by on a Saturday morning. I'm just going to play some clips of things just right off, all right, to get us kind of in the mood. And actually, the music you were listening to there is written by Neil Anthony Sanford, who's also our cameraman, and he's the one who shoots the video when we go on tour in Egypt, and he makes banners. He made the the Wake and Aware poster. He does these kinds of things, so he's a designer as well. So multi-talented guy, been working for Camelot for almost 10 years now. So I want to give him a hand and say thank you. Mainly, he's a musician. As you can see, he does fabulous music. So, okay, now to more serious things. Just going to start playing this. This came over TikTok the other day. And by the way, I guess I should start by saying I'm Kerry Cassidy. I guess you're supposed to introduce yourself. Anyway, and I want to say that I would like people to raise their hand if they don't really know anything about Project Camelot. Like if you happen to come with a friend and you didn't know anything. Okay, just very few people are. So most of you are up to speed on kind of who we are, what we do, and what I do, and all of that. So you won't be in a state of shock when I start talking. That'll be good. All right.
My name is Tara Rodas, and thanks to the bravery of Aaron Stevenson, and thanks to Project Veritas and James O'Keefe for publishing the story, I was sitting on the Pomona Fairplex emergency intake site processing unaccompanied children. So you may know that children were coming to this country from other countries. We were taking them into the care, HHS, and then delivering them to sponsors, unvetted sponsors throughout the United States. So because one whistleblower came forward and because one organization was willing to tell the truth, I was able to then uncover and report that the U.S. government is the middleman in a large-scale, multi-billion-dollar child trafficking operation. We literally have government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded child trafficking. So one whistleblower coming forward, telling the truth, sets in motion a cascade of things that you could never imagine. So I was very grateful for the opportunity for someone to tell the truth. And who knows, maybe one of you could be the next person to come forward. So along with my buddy Aaron, I'm going to continue to speak the truth until children are rescued, criminals are prosecuted, and the United States government no longer is putting billions of dollars to traffic children.
Okay, so you got that right. Yeah, because some people are in denial. I don't think actually the English would be, because you guys are quite aware, sort of awake and aware, as I call it. But surprisingly, in America, there are people who will say that, oh, she's lying, and she was put up to it, and children aren't being trafficked, all this kind of thing. I mean, it's amazing that people would even be in denial of something like that, and especially when there's a lot of evidence and people who've come forward, and tons of evidence, actually. And even more now that we have our borders have been wide open for the last few years, so it's only worse. It's basically, human trafficking is an epidemic. So, and I'm sure you're probably aware of that. Now I have another clip I want to play. You know about the UAP UFO meeting of the Oversight Committee in United States, right? You know, some people I know, Britain didn't pay a lot of attention. They didn't actually get a lot of advertising or, notice, or the videos weren't played over here and all that. But if you pay attention to American media, you did see some media coverage of this historic, basically a historic event, announcing that UFOs are real. And that, aliens, they have alien bodies and all of this with Grush, who's an intelligence agent. And so this is a clip from that.
It looks like that we have a problem here that needs further investigation.
Yes. Tracked it, the E2 tracked it. We never saw it on our radars, our fire control radar.
And I'm a former F-18 pilot with a decade of service in the U.S. Navy. I have experienced advanced UAP firsthand. As we convene here, UAP are in our airspace. These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine. Military aircrew and commercial pilots, trained observers whose lives depend on accurate identification, are frequently witnessing these phenomena. Parts of our government are aware of more about UAP than they let on. After upgrades were made to our jet's radar systems, we began detecting unknown objects operating in our airspace. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter. Soon, these encounters became so frequent that aircrew would discuss the risk of UAP as part of their regular pre-flight briefs.
Do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
Now, if the fastest plane on Earth was trying to do these maneuvers that you saw, would it be capable of doing that?
No, not even close.
The American people deserve to know what is happening in our skies. It is long overdue.
And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ogles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here and the courage it took to come forward and again, the sacrifice that each of you have made. I serve on the National Security Subcommittee for the Financial Services Committee, so I really want to stay in the national security lane, if I may. So when we think about traditional adversaries and both us towards them and them towards us, we probe their capabilities. We look for weaknesses, and we collect that data, that reconnaissance for in the event we need it in the future. For each of you, yes or no question, based off of your own experience or the data that you've been privy to, is there any indication that these UAPs could be essentially collecting reconnaissance information? Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Grush?
Fair assessment, yeah.
Mr. Fravor?
Very possible.
Again, in the national security vein, is it possible that these UAPs would be probing our capabilities? Yes or no, Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Grush?
Yes.
Fravor?
Definitely.
Is it possible that these UAPs are testing for vulnerabilities in our current systems?
Yes.
Yes.
Possible.
Do you feel, based off of your experience and the information that you've been privy to, that these UAPs provide an existential threat to the national security of the United States? Mr. Graves?
Potentially.
Yes, sir, potentially.
Same answer, potentially.
I would say
Fravor.
definitely, potentially.
Mr. Graves and Fravor, in the event that your encounters have become hostile, would you have had the capability to defend yourself, your crew, your aircraft?
Absolutely not.
Sir?
No.
Is based off of the information that you've been privy to, is there any indication that these UAPs are interested in our nuclear technology and capabilities?
Yes.
By external observation, sure, that could be a fair assessment, yeah.
Yes.
Is there any indication that the Department of Energy is involved in UAP data collection and housing?
I don't have an answer.
I can't confirm or deny that in a public setting.
And could you do it in a secure setting?
Yes.
Mr. Fravor?
No, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, I think I'm the last member to go, but there clearly is a threat to the national security of the United States of America. As members of Congress, we have a responsibility to maintain oversight and be aware of these activities so that, if appropriate, we take action. I would encourage the chairman to demand that we have any and all, but in particular Mr. Grush, talk to us in a skiff. And if that access is denied, I will personally volunteer to initiate the Holman Rule against any personnel or any program or any agency that denies access to Congress. There clearly is a threat to the national security of the United States of America. There clearly is a threat to the national security of the United States of America. There clearly is a threat to the national security of the United States of America.
Okay, so that we put together, and I think it's rather important. You know, it's like the understatement of the decade or the century or centuries, right? So we've had Secrecy and Grush, who is apparently extremely knowledgeable. And by the way, if you don't know this, as an intelligence agent and from the Air Force, he has been briefing presidents. So he's very high level. And you know, maybe you know all this, but he actually is representing a bunch of whistleblowers who came forward to report to him, who were military and intelligence agents, of their own sightings and interactions. As he said, he's, you know, about bodies being held at military bases and so on, crash retrievals as we call them. So he's the middle guy, and he's extremely knowledgeable now on all these issues. And if it's a threat to the United States, you can imagine every time you see a UFO, which is very often if you go on the internet and find out that people are showing sightings, and much better footage actually than the Tic Tac, which is a highly cleansed particular sighting, which I can tell you the background there too. The bottom line is that UFOs are seen every day all over the world. So technically, they're violating Earth airspace, which means they are a potential threat to the security of the world, to say nothing of the United States, the UK, et cetera, et cetera. And in some cases, we're aware of battles between our military and UFOs. And that there's a long history of all of that, even going back as far as the testimony of Bob Dean, who is one of our most famous whistleblowers, who has passed on now, wonderful man, who violated his security oath in order to come forward and tell the truth. Back in those days, that he was at what's called SHAPE headquarters, and they tried shooting at the UFOs, and he was based in, I think it was France, and to no effect. So even if they had tried to defend themselves back in those days, when he was reporting this, it would have meant nothing. Also, another note in what you just heard, Department of Energy, when they asked the question saying, would the Department of Energy been aware of this or this or that, there are two pilots on either side of Grush, okay, in case you're not familiar with the whole hearing, which is available to watch from beginning to end, and it goes on for at least an hour, maybe longer. I guess you were saying it goes on for an hour and a half? It says more than 2 hours. About 2 hours. Really? Okay. All right. And so you definitely can go watch it. It's available in various places. I have it linked on my website as well. So what they're saying about the Department of Energy, when they denied knowing whether or not the Department of Energy had any involvement, that is a very kind of coded little sequence between those guys. In other words, what happens is the secret space program that I report on and have been reporting on now for over 18 years, that's been the primary objective when we started out Project Camelot back in the early days, was to interview whistleblowers from above top secret and basically bring forward the secrets of what was really going on in our skies and in our world. and with the secret space program. So when they talk about the Department of Energy, you wouldn't expect with a title like that it would have anything to do with national security or the defense of the United States, but in fact it does. So that's why they're saying they have no idea, because that's actually starts to go above top secret when they even address the fact that there's an association between UAPs or UFOs and Department of Energy. That's just about to cross a line into above top secret. And that's why they got all nervous and careful about their answer. Just some regular people might not know that. So there's little clues that go on in these kinds of things, where if you know what you know, then you realize they're very nervous. And if you watched, let me do this. How many people watched the entire hearing, the UAP hearing? Can you raise your hand? So not that many. Yeah. It's actually fascinating. I mean, I highly recommend it. It's not boring at all. And these people are revealing, thank you, that in essence, these are like what you call impeccable witnesses. So again, one in the middle is Grush, David Grush, and he actually came, he did an interview with an Australian journalist, forget his name, about a month or two before, I think it was in June, before this hearing. And he said that there were bodies found. He's a little more, explanation going on there. So that interview is also highly recommended, because Grush, the nature of the hearing before Congress, again, that was televised, was that they were only allowed to talk, I think it was 10 minutes. Each man was able to relate something about his experience with UFOs, UAPs, as they're calling them, and his testimony. So that's it, 10 minutes each. Then based on that short little 10-minute thing and some of the other information that kind of comes behind it, knowing that they had other witnesses even behind them, they basically did the rest of the hearing. So it's kind of important also that you understand that these three men are, as again, two pilots and one intelligence agent, with a lot of whistleblowers coming to him from a high level, basically only had 10 minutes of testimony, which is, if you think about this going back, it's even Grush has said it goes back to the 1930s, at least in the United States, the secrecy. And for all intents and purposes, in case you don't know this, anytime there's a crash retrieval anywhere around the world, the United States military comes in and takes control. So they also, make sure that governments don't disclose. So anyone who's a, high-level government person in another country basically is under the purview of the United States government when it comes to anything to do with UFOs and the whole idea of, secret space, underground bases, and the whole secret space program that we have going on. And of course, you may not know this, or some people may know this, that we have the secret space program was built. It was really built up when the Nazis from Project Paperclip came over to America from Germany after, near the end of the war. But it was even going on before that. And, you could say that the atom bomb, whatever you want to call that, basically was developed as part of the secret space program. And again, that was developed under, I believe, the Department of Energy banner, so to speak, which might have begun the relationship that it has directly with national security, weaponry, and defending Earth, if not our country, supposedly the United States, and the Five Eyes, of which Britain is one. They're called the Five Eyes. And I think those are Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Canada, although Canada's been on the outs because they've been doing some insane things recently, where at least I had heard that on a certain level they're kind of kept out of meetings now because they have been siding with, I don't know who, the CCP, I guess you might say, and more or less being sort of like, working against the security of the United States and the Five Eyes, or other Four Eyes, let's say. So just want to say that. Just put this up really quickly. So this is my book. In case you don't know, I have a book out. I published it on Valentine's Day of 2020, and it tells you a lot about what I'm talking about, what I'll be talking about, what I've been investigating all these years. And, I tried to put a lot into the book, and also some personal background and things, so you might find that fun to read. It gets 5 stars, even with trolls, on Amazon. So, okay, first of all, how many people, because this is kind of a problem, but a lot of people don't go to my website. They actually, okay, you may go to my Telegram, hopefully, because I post on my Telegram every day, just about. And I go on there at 3 in the morning and start ranting over something. So it's really kind of a unique view into like Project Camelot in action, because I do get information in the middle of the night and I work in the middle of the night. So anyway, so my Telegram is big. My website has everything. So we're talking about 18 years of work. Now, I was banned from YouTube back in 2021. I think it was, if I have this right, March of 2021. Overnight, they just deleted. I had been on there for like 16, 17 years. I had 70 million viewers worldwide. I had something like 316,000 subscribers, and just deleted the entire channel. Boom, gone. But luckily, Odyssey, you may know of Odyssey.com, there was I had been warned kind of because of the way they were treating me and the censorship for actually the year before that. So I was prepared that, people were losing their channels back in those days. And because I was interviewing doctors, apparently for all the years I was doing the release of and investigations on the UFOs and national security and the secret space program, that was all fine because they thought there was enough of a giggle factor. Oops, because that's changed. So now suddenly I would be violating everything under the sun as far as they're concerned again with my secret space stuff. But prior to that, I wasn't in the health field. I wasn't interviewing doctors. But when COVID came along, I got very into investigating that in a huge way. And that's when I started crossing the line and constantly getting strikes, and they removed my videos. So I figured that my days were numbered. So just saying that I got deleted, so back in 2021. So once that happened, everything had to go on just my website. We put all our videos on our servers, and they went on to Odyssey. Now, what's happened since then is Rumble kind of came to the fore, so that's where I put my most recent videos, in case you don't know, and then I embed them in the pages of my website. But during the transition, so I had, I think it's something like 1,200 to 1,500 videos. What came over from YouTube at the time was around 900. Went on to Odyssey. I don't know how many are over there now. I haven't looked. But just saying, lately I'm noticing that some videos in the transition kind of disappeared altogether. We have copies somewhere, like because I'm the editor. It's kind of like a one-woman show, basically. Like I say, Neil helps with a few things, but when it comes to the videos and the production, and I edit, I do a broadcast, then I edit it quickly for any delays. I don't take out content, and then I post the video. So that's kind of how it works, and I do 3 shows a week. Some people don't seem to know that. I don't know why, but anyway, so if you don't really pay a lot of attention, I am churning out work constantly. Anyway, so this is, we've already kind of covered this particular slide. So for those that don't know, that's the front page of my website, and that's the top of my website. And across the top, you'll see that I've got all the links to go to all my social media, except Truth Social isn't there, which it should be. But I have Twitter, and I got banned from all the social media at a certain point around the time when they took down my website. At the same time, within 4 days, they took me off of Vimeo, where I had tons of conference footages, because I did conferences almost every year, and we record these conferences, as you can see. And so they just deleted me. So for anyone who doesn't know this, that shows you how these corporations work together, because I never did anything over at Vimeo that they had an issue with until YouTube took my entire channel down. And then 4 days later, Vimeo took my entire channel down. So then I was banned on all the different social. I was banned on Twitter, I was banned on LinkedIn, I was banned, just all over the place. Then I went out and eventually started a new email address over on Proton Mail, I think it's called. And I opened a new Twitter account. So I have a new Twitter. It's not new now. We're talking since 2021. So it's maybe been around for about a year and a half or two. But that's why you'll see there's hardly any subscribers. I mean, there's some, but because 18 years of work, just my other stuff is just gone basically in the social media. But I do have 2 Facebook accounts. One is my personal one, Kerry Cassidy, and the other one is Project Camelot. They're both linked here. Telegram's linked here, Twitter, Odyssey, Rumble. YouTube is a remnant YouTube channel that they didn't delete the entire channel, so there were like 4 videos or something stupid on there. And I lately, because, Nino, Nino Rodriguez, I have been on his show a number of times, and he had said that YouTube was just recently changing their policy, except that I did a test. I put like 4 videos up there, and they deleted, I think, 2 of them, just immediately. I mean, and they were pretty tame. I don't think I was saying that much. I don't even think I mentioned COVID, because it's kind of like old news at this point. But whatever they didn't like, so that's that. So I'm afraid their policies are not that different than they ever were, at least since they began censoring people. So just showing you this, then I'm going to be showing you the pages. Okay, I'm going to go through some of these first posts, because those are my most recent posts. So what I do is I embed a video. Sometimes I write an article on a subject, and then I make the post. So it's not just a video. When you click on these, you'll see I put all kinds of links that are related as well. So it's a lot of work goes into this, just saying. So I'll explain this right now. I just posted last night, I think it was. I have a whistleblower who he wrote an article about walk-ins, and there's not a lot of talk about walk-ins, but it's kind of another way of saying, the aliens can possess, even temporarily, you and your body, and that could be considered a walk-in as well. So walk-ins can be a more general topic. Anyway, this particular whistleblower is trying to disclose as much as he knows about certain subjects. So I'm not going to elaborate on that at the moment. Now, how many people are following the fires everywhere? Of course, you know that this is actually a compilation of these images that came through from Peru. And so you see little pictures of the clouds over the cloud cover, the actual area we're talking about, and then these are just little pictures. But if you see the Nazca aliens, that's not part of the attack. So supposedly, if you haven't heard the story, 7-foot tall, supposedly gray aliens who are wearing body armor. Never heard of that in all the years I've been studying this. Grays have their own, reptilian bodies, but they're not wearing green body armor. Someone said it's like the Spider-Man. There's some kind of character. What's it called? Green. Okay, because I don't like Spider-Man, so I don't watch those movies. But anyway, so there's this issue with the fake alien invasion. How many people know what I'm talking about when I say fake alien invasion? Okay, so that's good. Now we have various names for it, and this has been predicted for years and years. But what appears to be happening is that it may actually be happening now. And okay, let me explain this. So the reason, what happened with the UAP Congress meeting, where they actually had real witnesses come forward, we've had disclosure meetings over the years. Stephen Bassett did some, Stephen Greer did some, and they've had very credible, excellent witnesses from, military, ex-military, retired people who were part of the national security state, whatever you want to call that, as well as intelligence agents over those years. And I, in fact, attended the one with Stephen Bassett. This is 7 or 10 years ago, and interviewed some of the witnesses and such. At that time, he told me to my face that my witnesses were not welcome to testify because they brought a level of truth that people couldn't handle, in his estimation back then. So even though, of course, I had tons of whistleblowers, because that's actually really what we specialized in. Before anyone else even called them whistleblowers, we were calling them that. But anyway, and that was, again, since the year 2005. Anyway, so this meeting, the UAP meeting, came about within what appears to be about 1 month. And the week before the meeting, you might have heard of the grandstanding that some of the members of Congress who were part of the meeting, one of them is named Burkett, the other one is Luna. They were asking questions of the witnesses. So they were there at the meeting. But a week prior, they were supposed to get a briefing. However, what really happened, according to what the investigator that helped me with this said, is that they were not, so they went to a base, which is called Elgin, and that's where some of the bodies are supposed to be held, maybe. But anyway, they expected to get a briefing like on the Thursday, I think it was, or Friday, right before the following week when the meeting happened. And they showed up, and this general who was in charge of the base shut the door in their face, basically, and said, no, you're not allowed. You don't have high enough clearance to have a meeting. And apparently, this guy, Matt Gates, I think it's Matt Gates, he, however, was allowed in the meeting. He does have high enough clearance, and so he was given the data. But Burkett and Luna they did a press conference. How many people heard about this? Anybody? Okay, yeah. So it was kind of fascinating. For me, you have to understand, I've been doing this for 18 years. So an incident like that, where members of Congress are told to their face that they don't have clearance and that they're not allowed to know, is great. That's, in the public domain. So there was grandstanding. That was a planned, I think Gates, maybe even in connection with, we don't know this yet, but apparently Matt Gates is a Trump supporter, an avid Trump supporter. So there could be the hand of what we consider to be the white hats, and I'll get into all that later, and Trump behind this grandstanding that took place. Now, I don't know that, and there's a reason why it might not be, but it's quite interesting that it did happen the way it did. Anyway, so, back to this. This is very recent news, all right? How many people are aware of this so-called Peru incident where there's aliens attacking. So these are, it's a remote village in the Amazon, I guess sort of part of the Amazon of Peru, and first a young girl was abducted at night. It's all happening at night, apparently. So that's why you get these little tiny shots and you can't really see what's happening. And there's, now I'm not going to remember the guy's name, but I got it linked here. So, yeah, this guy, what's his name? Anyway, now I have to tell you something about this, because this channel, it's a kind of a slick operation, and he's getting access to stuff that independent researchers such as myself and certain others of my colleagues are not getting. And somehow, he's right on the story, right? But his company is actually, or his production is run by iHeartRadio, which is a huge conglomerate, in case you don't know. And so I'm just saying it's not great. And he's doing a good job, all right? And I guess the woman on there doesn't talk much, but someone said she's his wife. And the thing is that there's okay, so what you might call it a limited hangout. So they're going to be careful, all right? So you think you're getting the real story and all of this. And the witness he has on this show, and you can watch the video and it's embedded here, is someone who actually went down there in person. So the idea is that either it's these, I don't know whether they call them construction people, dressing up in some kind of thing, trying to make themselves look 7 feet tall, going in and trying to terrorize the villagers to get them to move out of the way so they can cut down more jungle. That's one scenario. The other scenario is that these are tall gray aliens wearing armor, and they levitate on these discs. So they were photographed apparently levitating around in the jungle, hiding behind trees and stuff. But that smacks of, as far as I'm concerned, human technology, not alien. And we have seen, if you pay attention to this kind of thing, you have seen that they do have some disc type things that they can stand on and levitate and stuff. So the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because this is after quite a bit of productions, and the UAP sort of put together that Congress thing where they're actually taking away the giggle factor, all right? So all of a sudden, UAPs, as you know, this has kind of been building, but this is how they're setting the scene so they can do a fake alien invasion. And I have gone public for many years talking about something that happened in, I guess it was 2019, I think fall of 2019, if I have the day right. And Randy Kramer, who's a whistleblower, he's a Marine, came to a conference and spoke where I was speaking as well. And it was usually held in Yelm. In this particular case, it was in a different small town, but it's a tiny conference that's held up there almost yearly. And I think I've spoken there twice now. And anyway, so Randy Kramer came on stage back then, so that was around 2019. He said within 3 years, the military was going to do a fake alien invasion, and then explained why they were going to do it. Basically because, according to him, they're sick of the divide that has to do with the fact that they have this incredible technology that surface Earth does not have access to, and that most people's understanding of aliens is just, they know nothing, and so on and so forth. So they had decided to do a fake alien invasion that they could control the narrative. That's the main thing, where they could fight battles and kill the aliens and look like the American and the military are, still in control of this planet. Because the last thing we want to do is show that the aliens are in control of the planet, which actually might be the case. So That's why they want to do the fake alien invasion, if you're wondering about that. And he said at the time that there would be collateral damage of, I think he said, and I'm terrible with numbers, but I think it was 1 million collateral damage would die in America, being collateral damage during these battles that are going to happen with these fake aliens. So I was there, and I was in the audience, and I spoke up and said, how are you going to have a fake alien invasion when the real ones are here? And he went crazy. I mean, he's got PTSD and all this because he's been actually fighting aliens. And I interviewed him years ago. And he talks about how he's been fighting as part of the Mars colony aliens, basically these huge insectoids, and killing them for many years. And he also became sort of a pilot and was doing in battles on the moon as well. So he came stomping down off the stage right in front, got like, I thought he was going to beat me up. And he basically, started yelling at me, kind of like. And all of this was, that conference like this one was filmed. However, of course, the film never made it to the public. It disappeared. I kept calling and saying, when are they going to publish it? And I know the woman who runs the conference. She was a really nice lady. But I also know, I don't want to say this maybe too publicly, but the government has control over her because of some past incident in her life. And I'm not sure what it was even. But so she was not able to do the kind of thing I would do, which is, release it anyway and, screw them. But so that's what happened with that. He actually, got in my face and he was very upset. Then so that was an announcement saying within 3 years. So that was around 2019. Then COVID sort of intervened, and I think that they were delayed. Now we're here in 2023, which is 4 years. I think we're past 2019, whatever, when he came out. So they're about a year behind, and now the whole thing is gearing up. So I hope you can follow where I'm going with this. But anyway, so the UAP conference that happened, the interviews with Grush, which all of this is orchestrated. It's, Grush is not operating on his own. He is retired. He is an official whistleblower. They're trying to change the law. And this came out actually during the hearing as well, that whistleblowers have not been protected, by our government. And in fact, they are killed, and they have been killed. And I have a number of my whistleblowers have been killed. In fact, arguably, you could say Bob Dean could have, been pushed along. He was certainly elderly. But, William Tompkins and Gordon Neville, I have a whole list of people. I don't know for sure. I do know, Brian O'Leary is a pilot. He was supposed to go to Mars. You might know my interview with him way back in the day. He was slated to go to Mars. He came forward. He interviewed around the world free energy activists. And then he actually did a show with us, a TV show, in which he disclosed certain things. So I'll explain about that. But basically gave him a fast-acting cancer, and he died within a year. So the TV show he did, if you don't know, we did a TV show back in the day. So during these 18 years, somewhere around 2009 or so, we were approached by Hollywood because of Jesse Ventura, and he had a famous conspiracy theory television show in America. And they said, oh, he doesn't want to deal with aliens, but you guys do, right? So we knew a producer who packaged the story of what we do, and I pitched also the whole show. And so back at the time, in the early days, I had an English partner, Bill Ryan. So at that time, we were together, I guess it was before 2009. It was more like 2008 or 7 or whatever it was. Anyway, so we had this television show, and we shot the pilot. and we had a producer and all of that. And all of the witnesses were our witnesses. So we kind of co-produced the show, you could say. They had their own director, and it was all done for the same channel that Jesse Ventura was on. And so what happened during the shooting of that is that we were actually shooting in Palm Springs at the time. We had one of our witnesses with us on the shoot was Gordon Neville. That was his section. And late at night, I got a phone call from Gordon. And Gordon and I had kind of, sometimes I develop a fun relationship with some of my witnesses, like Bob Dean loved me and, you know, all this kind of stuff. We were good friends and, you know, we would meet for, you know, dinner and drinks or whatever it happened to be, you know, when we were around or interviewing them and stuff like that. But anyway, so Gordon and I had become kind of friends in a loose sense of the word, I guess you might say. I had a joking relationship. So I used to always say to Gordon Neville, and by the way, if you haven't seen that interview, it's fabulous. And it was apparently, I was told, after we did it, it was shown up and down the halls of the CIA. And they loved it. Because I shot it, I actually made it black and white. Because Gordon reminded me of an old-time mobster that I thought, you know, sort of suited his personality. He's kind of, you know, like this tough guy, kind of. Anyway, so I used to say, look, Gordon, I know you're CIA, blah, blah, blah. So I used to say that for years to him. And so when he was on the TV show and he calls me up and he says, well, yeah, you know, I've always said I was not CIA, but actually my boss wants to talk to your producer. So I transferred the call to my producer at the time. And he was a young guy. And basically they made him an offer. And this is what goes on in Hollywood all the time, to do with anything to do with, you know, UFOs and secrecy and all of that. So it's been going on for years. So they basically made him an offer that he was not supposed to refuse, saying that if you let us control the show, you will go to series. If not, you'll take the consequences, right? And he basically, you know, kind of like egotistically, whatever you want to say, said, no way, I'm not going to do that, and hung up the phone. Well, they fired him. They fired the director. They hired another director. They sort of reworked the show slightly. Then they finished it and they put it on the shelf. It never made it to television, or at least it wasn't supposed to. And then one Friday night in the middle of, you know, a couple years later, they took it down off the shelf and they put it up. And we had some very loyal fans who I guess were watchers of that particular channel. And they called us up like a few hours before it was broadcast and said, oh my God, your show's going to be on. So we filmed it. That's why we have a copy of it on our website. So you can watch it. It's quite fun. It has all our witnesses, and it's all about Mars and, you know, stuff about, you know, the testimony we have about Mars, and we're both in it, myself and Bill. Another thing that happened during that was that they wanted to fire me because they wanted Bill, because, okay, Jesse Ventura, you know, he's this big muscle guy and all that kind of stuff. So they decided they wanted this was a guy show. And so they wanted a guy to be like the star. So they took literally, I mean, I'm not kidding, they literally took the words out of my mouth and gave them to Bill to say. And on top of it, so you'll see me in this, you know, TV series if you watch it, this episode. And you'll see me occasionally just standing there saying nothing, which I never do. So that's why, you know, just kind of anecdotal. But what happened was Bill, to his credit, stuck by me, and we both said we'd walk off the show if they fired me. And so they had to keep me. So, but for one, you know, for one series episode, they didn't, you know, I guess it wasn't that big of a deal. But all right, so now getting back to this. So what we have is a buildup with the UAP conference, in which the conclusion, as you saw, because it was with what we call an oversight committee that handles national security for the United States. And their conclusion, as you saw, which I showed you the clip, of the guy at the very end, who I think had a higher clearance than some of the questioners, and basically said unequivocally, this is a threat to our national security. So then you have to say, well, why is that? First of all, why has it taken 90 years since the 1930s of secrecy for this to come out? And why all of a sudden are Congress acting like they've never ever known there were UAPs, there were crash retrievals, there are bodies, there are aliens, hello, right? When most people, or a lot of people, know this is all true. So this has been the game being played for many, many years. Now, as far as the fires go, I have written an article here. You probably haven't seen it. I only published it a couple of days ago. And the bottom line is I have a very high-level witness called Captain Mark Richards, who I've interviewed 12 times over a period of 5 years. Now, when COVID came along, he's in prison, in Solano Prison in Northern California. I was not able to go in person to do any more interviews. He was not allowed to, prisoners couldn't even have visitors during those 2 years, at least 2 years of COVID. I'm not sure how long the exact it lasted in the prison system, but so I haven't interviewed him since then, and other things have interviewed in my life and so on and so forth. But I'm compiling all of that into a book, and all of the interviews are available on my website. So if you haven't seen my interviews with Captain Mark Richards, I highly recommend that. Now, this article is about some information that he gave me. So I don't know if you remember, but a couple years ago we had a major slew of fires in California, some in northern and some in southern. And I used to live in Southern California. Right now I'm actually in the Sierra Nevada mountains. I kind of got out of that area, but I may be going back, so I don't know what's happening. But at any rate, saying that these fires, okay, what Mark told me during, I don't know, you know about Paradise, California, because that was one of the worst situations, and that's kind of a unique community that was up in the mountains, and it burned like crazy, and all the fires burned in very strange ways, as they've been doing. And we know they're using directed energy weapons to create the fires. So these are not natural fires, okay? They're not even what you would call arson. They're basically military created fires. And so what happens is what's going on in Hawaii and actually Greece, on the Greek islands, and Portugal, I guess, is recently also had a slew of fires, from what I understand. And what you have to look at, according to Mark Richards, is back when Paradise happened, he said that they shot a directed energy weapon that created the fire. And the fires are to actually, no one's going to tell you this, okay? So you don't have to believe me if you don't want to. You don't have to believe Mark Richards. But there's evidence that a lot of the things he has said have come true already, and over the time that I've been interviewing him. And I can say that he has very high credentials and that his information is amazing. So if you start listening to him, you're going to realize this guy has to have some kind of high-level access on some level. Anyway, so what happens is there are portals that are opening and aliens are actually coming through. And I know that if you're not kind of deep into this subject, you might not understand. So a vortex and a portal and a wormhole, those are all terms, Stargate, they're all terms for going, in essence, out of this dimension and traveling in space, okay? And I can talk for hours about portals, and I can also walk around and show you where there's portals, because they occur in nature naturally, all right? And you can feel the energy in a portal because it's circular and you know, all of that. So I'm an earth sensitive. I can tell where the portals are and such. Anyway, and it helps me in my investigations. from time to time. And I also lead tours in Egypt where there are a lot of portals and stargates and so on. So I can also tell you where those are there. But anyway, associated a lot of times with the temples, of course, as well as churches. You know, being in Britain, because you have your stone circles, a lot of those are built around portal openings. And Stonehenge, of course. So this is probably obvious to you. Okay, so these are pictures of the fires and you know, how bad they have gotten. I'm basically saying here that, you know, I'm testifying. And so this particular post that's embedded at the bottom, so what I do is I'll write an article and then I'll put reference material below it from you know, other interviews I've done and or other articles that relate to it. So in this case, I've got the California fires, where the Paradise Fire was evidence of these directed energy weapons. So, you know, today, or yesterday it was, I guess, do you know who American Media Periscope, James Grundvig, is? He's a broadcaster. Anyway, I've been on his show a number of times, and he has a partner, Josh Reed. I've been on his show also a number of times. Anyway, they're doing a good job. They're backed by the white hat military, in case you wondered. And I will say that he just did a show with SG like 2 days ago. However, they are reporting the directed energy weapons side of it, but they don't understand this other side of it. So what Mark Richards says is these aliens, and in some cases they're basically negatively based aliens, okay, meaning from our point of view. So what that means from our point of view is that you've got a group of aliens that are coming into their incursions into our space to mess about with humans. And in those cases, sometimes they're, you know, grabbing humans and eating them. I know this sounds insane, but this is true. So it depends on the race, and it depends what they're really up to. But when they open a portal and they just come in, crazy stuff is going on. So because it's so important to understand, the secrecy in our world demands that our militaries act in insane ways. Now, here in this conference, you're going to hear from Kaz, I forget her last name, but Kaz, and she's kind of famous for being involved in what is called, I can't pronounce it, but I think it's the Plentish, whatever. What? Pentic. Okay. Anyway, incident that happened, in which your military got involved, and there was a gun battle and all kinds of stuff with, you know, aliens, and that was it's kind of like what area is that? Is it Wales? Yeah. Okay. And it's great to see you here. Anyway, so just saying that. You know, here in Britain more so because you're kind of like a more tight-knit island community, and sort of Ireland same way, Scotland same way. So America's much more spread out, right? But you know, because these things kind of come under your notice, they appear in the news and various things. So I think you're more aware of this kind of stuff going on than Americans are. So I don't have to necessarily convince you of that. But it is very important to understand that the basis of a lot of things we can interpret from one way. So James Grundvig and SG, you know, to their credit, are saying directed energy weapons, correct. But what they don't realize is that actually it could be the good side military that's actually trying to close these portals. And what happened in Paradise, California, apparently, according to Mark, is that the military there in like the Sacramento area was called in, and they had to go into that area. Then so we used to use nukes, mini nukes, to close portals, apparently. And then the Pleiadians, this is the story, the Pleiadians, who have always sort of tried to protect us in some form and fashion, the good guys, kind of. And that gets back to William Tompkins, and he's a very important witness. And if you haven't seen my 3-hour interview with him that Michael Schratt, who's an aerospace expert, and myself did, it's absolutely required viewing to understand anything about what's going on. These are, below it, I have related interviews. And the Nazca aliens, by the way, which the reason I stuck the Nazca aliens there is because they actually were found in where the Nazca lines are, and there are some caves there as well. And that's a whole story that I did a ton of investigation. I could actually spend quite a while talking about if people wanted me to, like maybe tomorrow. Obviously don't have time today, but bottom line is I found these pictures on the internet that hadn't been really seen around that much. I think these might be accurate pictures of the little robots. So what happened is, you know, if you followed the story, there's this alien, and I have pictures, but I don't want to take the time to find them right now and show you. Anyway, there's this being called Maria, who was one race of beings, who was around about 2,000 years ago. I think they dated everything. So her skeleton was found sort of mummified, and there's a whole story that goes along with how she got killed. And apparently she was also pregnant. Anyway, buried along with her in this cave were all these little robots, basically. They had these breastplates that indicated they were AI robots. I know this sounds incredible, but I have a whistleblower who was a consultant on this case. And, you know, Jaime Maussan got involved, Gaia TV, if you're familiar with them, got involved, Jay Widener. I mean, this was a big case a few years ago, but it got completely submerged by the media and tons of cover-up. And so what happens is these Nazca aliens that had the breastplates were what we would interpret to be robots. It's kind of interesting because their physicality seems to match a little bit some of the shots they've gotten of these aliens, so-called aliens that are attacking the villagers. So that's why I put that there, because there could be some kind of similar thing. So what I think is happening, let me get back to that. Bottom line is that this is the first real incident of a fake alien invasion where they have created these 7 foot tall, looking like grays, kind of, like their heads, I think, look like gray aliens, which everyone knows what that looks like. Big eyes, the whole thing, kind of thing. But that their bodies are covered with armor so that when they shoot at them, the bullets don't pierce their body. Whereas normal grays, and there are tons of races of grays, and some are tall and some are short, but they don't wear armor per se. So it's very suspicious, and I would say that these are what we call programmable biological entities that could be remotely operated by AI. So it's kind of reminiscent of what was found in the Nazca lines with these aliens. Anyway, it's a great place for them to start because it's done at night. The villagers aren't all that sophisticated, I suppose, and they're terrified. All the men are going around all night. It's been going on since July, and they're guarding their people with guns, and apparently it's causing a big stir in Peru. Now, I'm just showing you the fires there, and yeah, I think we're done with that. So just wanted to say that. So I think I'm going to kind of wrap this up. Maybe I'll just let you guys ask me some questions rather than go into, I wanted to cover this. Okay, well, all right, this is on my website. Okay, so this is just another heads up, and we can go in this tomorrow. If I don't have enough time to tell you about this, we can go into more detail here. How many people heard about the announcement? And actually, it was in a British television show called the British, what is it called? British News? Okay, so y'all know. So it's very weird because this is an American She is high level. She works, she's involved in a Department of Defense task force. Her name is Jan Halper Hayes. And basically, she came forward in an interview with this British television show saying that Space Force has all the evidence of the steal of the 2020 election, which is kind of electrified and put on notice the dark side, what we call the dark side, but whatever, or the Democrats, same thing, no, just kidding, but you know what I'm saying. So, bottom line, what she says in this interview is amazing, and I have it here. It's pretty short. I was going to play it, but I guess we are really running out of time, so I know I could play it tomorrow. You could watch it, and then we could talk about it tomorrow. So you must hear this. If you haven't heard the clip where she's talking about this, because she lets go a lot of really important points about how Trump dissolved the corporation of the United States while he was still in office through executive action, and he basically said, that it's dissolved, and then he reinstated what's called the U.S. Republic. This is also primary importance because there are some people who say that even if Trump was to win the election, in theory, there's some sketchy area where whether or not he can actually run for office or be qualified to get office is, because he's already been in office, and there's kind of these rules about certain things like that. So if he wins office, and even before that, so before the 2024 election, which is some people think may not even happen because of all the craziness that's going on right now, and we apparently are in store for this month, end of this month, and going into the fall for all kinds of crazy stuff that the deep state, as we call it, or the secret space program, what is in essence government and program, is going to roll out in the next just month or so. So, we're talking about China going into Taiwan. They're talking about Russia going into Nigeria, and all kinds of stuff going on. And by the way, okay, this is what I want to, let me wrap it up by saying this, and then you can ask me any question if we have time. What I'd love you to do is to start looking at every news item that seems at all, larger than just some personal thing. And even those cases could be revealing. Is to start looking at them from the point of view of if it was an alien disclosure item, where there's an alien component. Because what we're finding out, and what Mark Richards basically taught me over the 5 years I've been interviewing him. In my interviews, I would go in person, in prison, with a little pencil, take notes, because that's all they gave me, and then come out of the prison and go onto a recording device and put everything I remembered of the interview onto the recording device. Then I would publish. So they have notes on those interviews. It's quite an involved thing. And bottom line, I call them total recall, because that's how I was basically remembering everything that he told me and try to, document it. So what I'm saying is if you start analyzing news items from a completely different angle and understand that we do have, apparently, and this is Courtney Brown and his remote viewers are now remote viewing and teaching people how to use your camera to photograph these things. But we have craft every single day above our heads and like everywhere, so that we are being watched, we are being surveilled, we are being, in essence, invaded, and have been now for years and years, like being studied by various alien races. Solar Warden is guarding our space here in the entire solar system, but it's not really enough. And some, God, what is it called? There's a British series in which aliens are going around and they nab them and put them in prison, stuff like that. Torchwood, right? Torchwood. Yeah. So remember that series? I mean, that is real. And all of those TSA scanners in airports and stuff, they are determining whether you're indeed human. And by the way, we have evidence that happened to a friend of mine and others where it shows all your implants. I don't know if you know that, but those scanners that are scanning your body, what those people that look at the screens see is your implants. So just saying. Very interesting. So then they know you've been either abducted or, implanted or whatever it happens to be, right? So if you start looking at the world that way, and also each other, because we have a joke between us, Neil and I, when we go places and basically we see certain people, you can kind of tell when an alien has taken over a body recently or doesn't really, just came on to the planet. And some humans really look like that and really act like that. And yeah, you can be, joking about it. Maybe it's not true, but actually sometimes it really is. And I've been approached at conferences, by the way, by aliens. Some look very human, but I can just tell. I don't know what it is. At that Yelm conference, I was approached by a couple aliens who were nodding their approval and telling me that they really liked what I was doing. It was very interesting. I also get approached, by the way, by Illuminati, secret Illuminati that are, not dark side. They watch me a lot, and some of them come to the conference. I had a guy in Ireland that did that and come up to me, and that's actually kind of flattering because they are pretty knowledgeable, these people, and telling them that they really like my work. So that's a lot of fun. Anyway, okay, so that's it for now, and we'll do some questions if you're interested. Go ahead.
I just want to say that gentleman who did the Peruvian thing, I thought, he's really good and everything else, and there's lots of experiences in the jungle, but what got me, that really undid it all for me at the very end, was he said, well, we know that they're great, he said, because there isn't enough proof about reptilians. He said that at the end, the gentleman who did the thing on the Peruvian.
Not sure, could you say the question? And I'm afraid we don't have time to bring you in there.
Yeah, I just wondered if you would question his authenticity, whether he's working for the good side, because he said right at the end, which did everything for me, was, well, there were definitely alien greys. They weren't reptilians. We don't have enough proof that reptilians exist.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, okay, so the witness on that television show, that broadcast, the iHeart broadcast that I had on the screen, not on this one. But anyway, he also claims to be friends with Stephen Greer and Rich Dolan. Now, why is that a problem? Well, I did a whole presentation, in case you don't know it, in San Diego explaining why Stephen Greer is lying to the public. And, I don't target people normally. I don't tell, the dirt about my colleagues. But when I see somebody who is actually as well known as Greer coming out and blatantly lying, and this has been going on for years between Greer and I, where he says all aliens are positive. And as far as I'm concerned, well, he says good, actually. It's insane. Okay, if you know anything about abductions, if you know anything about, all the children, see, I haven't gotten to this part, but the link between human trafficking and alien incursion into the planet is direct. So, the humans that are basically abducting, killing, maiming, torturing children, the whole adrenochrome thing in Hollywood and beyond, all of this, and the Illuminati and the dark side, the satanic obsessions, drinking blood, you name it, this comes from the amount of reptilian DNA that is part of the human genome at this time, high concentrations of it in our elite so-called elite, especially the ones that would claim to be princes, royalty, so to speak. Call them blue bloods, right? So you have that also. All right, so any other question? So just saying, what I wanted to say, there's a reason why that individual is not completely trustworthy, although, and has sort of a twisted idea of what is and isn't happening. But reptilians are definitely a real, okay, it goes Draco, reptilians, and then Greys. And the Greys serve the Draco and the reptilians, and also the Nordics at times. So, and our military has also devised their own, they're called programmable biological life forms. We have also created our own form of Greys, apparently. So that's what these may be, actually, in my opinion. But yeah, Greys are derived from reptilians. So yes, in a sense, even Greys are reptilians, if you want to really go there, because that's what their skin is, that's what the body, everything like that. So yeah.
Could you explain the dichotomy between the deep space program where we've gone to Mars and the fake moon landing that was held by Kubrick?
Okay, so this is, and we were told this by a whistleblower at the very beginning of Camelot. The bottom line is it's both. Okay, so Kubrick was hired to show what is in essence a fake moon landing, filmed all of that, because in essence, okay, I have this here and I wanted to show it, but I haven't gotten to it yet. Okay, you see this drawing? This is a drawing of the reptilian ships that our astronauts actually saw when they landed on the moon the first time. And what was actually standing next to each ship, according to my interview with Tompkins, was reptilians. 7 foot tall or taller reptilian beings. And they basically said to our astronauts, get the hell off the moon. And this is why they had to hire somebody to film everything, because they weren't given access to the moon. And in fact, except maybe some little square place where they could mess about and put a flag or something. So that's why. So it is both. And according to our whistleblower, who is very deep into the secret space program, told us that we went to the moon, but we had help, is how he put it. So in essence, I actually worked for NASA as a contractor at JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab, for a number of years before I started Camelot. And I can tell you that I actually saw up close some of the places where they would practice for Mars on. So they would have rocks and make it look like a moon landing area or moon kind of scape. And so those were actually on the JPL lab, as they call it, which is up in the Pasadena Hills. On top of it, if you've ever gone up close to, I think you have a space museum here that I might have one of the little craft they supposedly went in, looks like a little tin can, literally like a tin can. It's unbelievable, there's no way. And they've done, shows about how the astronauts couldn't even fit inside and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, we had help. And William Tompkins, if you want to know the details, you should listen to the interview with William Tompkins, because he was part of Navy intelligence. He was in his 80s when he came forward. He wrote at least 2 books, maybe 3, with the help of probably Robert, what's his name? Anyway, so a lot of that is in that interview also. He talks about that.
So the actual moon landing, was it done a year before the fake landing?
Actually, when they were looking at the monitors when they went to the moon the first time, you know, I don't know if they had help then, you know what I'm saying? But they weren't helped by the reptilians. They, you know, encountered the reptilians. But according to Tompkins, our secret space program over the years was helped by both reptilians and Pleiadians. But the reptilians were sabotaging it all the while. So this is part of the story. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow.